You've seen the best.
You've seen the worst.
Now here's the rest of both worlds.
I'm GayFesh, and I never kill anyone at the supper table.
And I'm Ari. Dishonor on you and dishonor on your cow.
I'm Vivian Wulf, and just like Kempek, I'm still fat.
And today we'll be discussing the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Sins of the Father. But first, Vivian, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
Tell us a little bit about your experience with Star Trek. What have you seen? What's it mean to you?
I think I have watched most Star Trek that exists. I haven't seen Star Trek Prodigy. But I think other than that, I've seen pretty much everything. And I watched a lot of it when I was a kid growing up. I watched a fair bit of the original series. But mostly what was on TV was The Next Generation and Voyager. They were on TV a lot. And The Next Generation is definitely kind of my comfy place. You know?
It's some good comfort food, yeah.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people. You know, this is my first time through, but a lot of people find the show really comforting.
Yeah. It's just chill, you know?
Yeah.
And it's nostalgic, and it's a nice, comfy place to be chilling, watching Star Trek. Feels familiar.
I'm even trying to remember, like, I don't think there was a time that I don't remember Star Trek. I'm pretty sure The Next Generation started before I could form memories. So as far as I can think, it was just, TNG was just always on.
Well, how old are you?
I'm 37, 36. I'm so old now. I don't even keep track of my age.
Because I'm 33, and I kind of feel the same. But I'm pretty sure I was watching the original series on TV before that. But the original series aired back in the late 60s, early 70s. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I guess and TNG was late 90s, right?
Late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. 89, I think, or 88 is the first year.
Oh God, I was born in 88. So I guess I actually am a Next Generation child.
And I guess this makes me the old person here because I'm 42. But I grew up watching the original on syndication with my mom. We've talked about that a lot, that I've seen a lot of the original, but I never watched The Next Generation.
Oh, wow. Must be fun for you then.
So, before we get into the episode, if you're feeling so generous, head on over to patreon.com/restofbothworlds. For any amount, you will get access to the episodes up to 5 days early, and you'll also get access to a special spot on the Discord where you can suggest small talks for us to have at the beginning of each episode. And for the $10 tier, we will read out your name at the end of each episode, and nobody's taken that one yet, so you could be the first.
You could be the first one. So today we're talking about Sins of the Father, which is the 17th episode of the third season. It first aired on the 19th of March, 1990. The teleplay was by Ronald D. Moore and W. Reed Moran, and the story was by Drew Dagan and directed by Les Landau. This was so obviously a Ronald D. Moore episode.
There is so much episode in this episode. I just
there
gotta
is.
say, they crammed so much into it. It starts off with Worf's brother being the new first officer for the officer exchange program, but then once he reveals he's Worf's brother, it completely shifts, and they almost drop that plot line.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
Completely. They're like, oh, this isn't important. The real stuff has come along.
The conflict between the crew and the new sort of first officer exchange dude, it never really gets resolved in any kind of way. It's just Kern turns up, he's a bit of a hard ass, everybody's a little bit upset by it, and then he reveals that he's Worf's brother, and it's like, right, we're off to Kronos now.
Yeah. They didn't really care that they were just part of a game for him to see if he could trust Worf or not. They were like, oh, okay, let's go.
I gotta say, though, there's the early interactions between Kern and Riker, when Riker's trying to tell Kern, hey, look, I've been where you are before, and you gotta learn to deal with the other thing. And Kern's like, yeah, I'm already learning to deal because I'm not killing you for that suggestion.
I know.
But when they go into the turbolifts together, I couldn't help but notice Riker towers over everyone on the show, and Tony Todd's got like 2 inches on Jonathan Frakes, so it's really intimidating to see someone taller than Riker.
Yeah, that's true. I wondered why I found him intimidating in that turbo lift scene, and that's probably what it was, because I was trying to figure out why I felt so weird about that turbo lift scene, and it's because he's apparently a giant person.
Yeah, well, he's Candyman. He's he's a big dude.
Oh, is that Candyman?
That's
Yeah, he's
Candyman. That's
Candyman.
Tony Todd.
That's why he seems so familiar. I paused it while I was watching it to see if I recognized the name, on the Prime thing. And I was like, no, that name doesn't sound familiar to me. So I went back to watching the show. But okay, that makes sense because his voice sounded so familiar.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a good casting choice because a lot of the other Klingons are very brash, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're brash and aggressive, whereas like Kern he's got this whispery voice that is like straight up menacing, right?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have to be all blustery and show offy and I'll murder you, etc. He's just menacing. He's a very menacing person. And it's such a great casting choice, I feel. It's very Klingon.
Yeah, he was great. Exactly what you're saying. Like, I immediately was intimidated by him for no reason other than just his presence. Like, it was very good. Yeah. I did not call that he was going to be his brother. I knew the name of the episode title, but that I didn't know what that would mean. So I did not call it till he said, I am also from the family or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, oh, he's the brother.
Yeah. I appreciate just the whole antagonism he does to Worf, because with everyone else his antagonism is being a hard-ass Klingon officer, but with Worf it's just insulting his honor, basically.
Yeah.
Like, very good. You handled that well. Worf just fuming.
And I gotta say that this episode is just chock full of amazing one-liners, and one of the first ones is when like Worf finally loses his shit and throws a table at Kern, and it goes, "I am a Klingon. If you wish, a demonstration can be arranged." And like, that is so good.
It's such a good line. Yeah. I also really, really liked the line from Kern where he's like making fun of the meat because the captain or Picard is like cutting up a turkey for him. And he says, "I will try some of your burned replicated bird meat." And that's how I feel when people offer me Impossible. I'm like, I guess I can try that if you're really going to make me.
I loved that scene, the dinner scene, because Kern is just complaining about how bland their food is, and I'm just like, oh no, humans are the white people of space.
I mean, that's a running theme in Star Trek anyway, right? And I feel like they don't really explore it enough until like maybe Voyager, but maybe not even then. Like just how borderline colonialist the Federation can be at times.
Yeah, well, it's about claiming they're not. I know.
Well, they try to be, they're the happy liberal kind of colonialism where they, try not to do it.
They try a little bit, just a little bit.
Everybody kind of has a choice, but this massive expanding empire is taking over star systems right next to people, and they end up in little isolated pockets surrounded by the Federation. What are you going to do, right? Like, it's like, oh, it's your choice whether or not you join. Yeah, but you like own everything in the immediate vicinity.
I think the Federation just uses a lot of soft power, like because even when they're dealing with species that aren't in the Federation, there's still a lot of trading arrangements going on. I mean, the Klingon Empire is not part of the Federation, but they ally with them and trade with them. So it's, they're just kind of, they don't have to swing their stick very often because it's just omnipresent.
Omnipresent large stick. Yeah, that seems about right, And they show it off by, warping their big giant Starfleet ship into people's systems all the time. It's not intimidating at all.
Yeah, it's not often they do the outright threat thing. They do it a bit in the original series, and I think they've started doing it a bit in Strange New Worlds as well. But yeah, it's not often they go, actually, we have a huge military and we can just mess you up.
Right. It's just implied. Yeah.
Speaking of empires, there was the dumbest line in this episode when Picard called the Klingon Empire the Klingon Imperial Empire.
Oh my god, I picked up on that.
Yeah, I caught that too, and I didn't know if it was called that.
That was so annoying. What other kind of empire is it? Oh. You'd think Patrick Stewart, of all people, would have picked up on that and gone, wait, I'm supposed to say what?
Yeah.
Maybe they couldn't get a writer on set, so they couldn't change the line.
Maybe that's true because they can't change it without approval or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe he said it and noticed like immediately afterwards, and they were like, no, it's fine. We've done the take now. We're not changing it. You did great.
Most people won't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't redo that line because they would have to set up lighting again, and this episode was really opposed to having good lighting.
I know, it was just bad lighting the entire time, red lighting whenever we were on Klingon. What is the name of their planet?
It's Kronos. They don't actually say Kronos in this episode. They just say they were going to the Klingon first city. I don't think the name Kronos is mentioned until Star Trek VI.
Okay. Because back in the first season, I believe they called it Kling, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they dropped that like a hot potato.
Yeah, because that's terrible. The Klingons from Kling. Yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, most of the other races are like that, apart from humans, right? Because we're special. Humans are from Earth, but like Andorians are from Andoria, Vulcans are from Vulcan, like Ferengis are from Ferenginar. Like,
Yeah.
You know, it. Honestly, you would think that with that naming convention, that our planet would be called Hume.
Hume. We're from Hume.
Yeah, we're humans from Hume.
And that was like that joke in Infinity War where he's like, what master do you serve? And he's like, am I supposed to say Jesus? And he's like, you're from Earth? He's like, no, I'm from Michigan. Or whatever he says. So they, okay, so we find out the Worf's brother, and then they have to head to Kronos, but they don't call it that because now Worf has to die for his father's crimes. Right?
yeah, they find out that his father's been accused of being a traitor because Worf ended up in Starfleet basically because his parents were murdered on Khitomer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is Khitomer's an outpost, right? It's not a ship.
Khitomer is a Klingon colony, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Klingon colony. It was attacked by the Romulans.
Is it the Klingon colony that was attacked in the last episode we watched? Or is this a whole different story?
That was a different Klingon colony from the one in yesterday's Enterprise, but I think it was a missed opportunity not to make that Khitomer.
Okay. And because we were just talking about Worf's origin story, because I said, I don't even know what Worf's origin story is, and then bam, here's the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you do get to see it more in detail like later in the series. I think there's actually a whole like reenactment of Khitomer or something at some point. I seem to remember that.
Interesting.
There's a two-parter later in the series involving Khitomer, and Khitomer is also featured heavily in Star Trek VI. So it's a place.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was attacked by the Romulans. Like everybody dies at Khitomer, including Worf's parents. But Worf gets off, right?
Worf gets off.
Yeah, he's a foundling.
And Kern never went to Khitomer.
Kern was left with a family friend back on Kronos because, well, as we find out later, Moog actually went to Khitomer specifically to investigate a suspected traitor. But the story that the Klingon High Command is going with is that Moog transmitted the shield codes to the Romulan fleet, which allowed them to drop the shields and then just orbital bombard the colony.
Right. So essentially, Worf's dad supposedly killed everybody, including himself.
Yeah, and he betrayed the Empire, and because Klingon codes of honor transfer to the Sun for like 7 generations, Worf's basically on the hook for Moog's supposed dishonor. And so he shows up to, lay challenge to it. Now, Kern, nobody knows that Kern is the son of Moog, because after his family was killed, the family friend that he was staying with just adopted him.
And didn't even tell him till he had his coming of age cotillion. I can't remember what it's called.
And there's actually this really great exchange between Kern and Worf. Like, so Worf, when he's challenging this claim against his father, he's not allowed to fight or get in any duels. And there's a lot of fighting in Klingon justice.
Kind of like Game of Thrones.
So Kern says he'd be honored if Worf would have him as his Chadich, which is like his second, who can like fight on his behalf if needs be, if there's some kind of fighting challenge or whatever. And Worf accepts and names Kern as his Chadich, and Kern says that he wants to reveal that he's another son of Moog, and Worf says no, you're not allowed to do that. And Kern gets a bit uppity, and then Worf says, here on Enterprise, you're the first officer, and you're the commanding officer, and I follow your commands. But on Kronos, I'm the older brother, and you will follow my commands. Mm-hmm. And that seems to me to like really make Kern go, like really solidifies to Kern that like Worf is not like a pushover or hasn't been corrupted by spending too much time with the humans, which is what he was kind of testing him for earlier. But I think that exchange kind of really solidifies it for him, where he's like, yes, this is my brother, Yeah,
Kern is apprehensive at first about Worf, but Worf proves himself to be a true Klingon. A truer Klingon than the Klingons themselves, as it turns out, with this episode.
Yeah, because as soon as they get to the planet, the tribal leader guy is like, just leave this place. And that didn't seem like very Klingon-y to me. And that, for me, it raised a bunch of red flags, but it did for Worf too.
Yeah, straight away. They have that confrontation in the I can't remember what it's called, the big hall in the first city.
Yep.
It's like a menpa or something they call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. And the charges are all laid out. There's a bit of an argument between Worf and Duras, who is actually a pretty big character in The Next Generation, at least when it comes to like Klingon and Worf stuff. But this is I think this is the first time we meet Duras. I think this is the first time we see the Klingon homeworld as well.
Yeah.
Like in all of Star Trek, this is the first time we see the Klingon homeworld. So this is the first time we meet Duras. And Duras is the one bringing the challenge. He says that he'd worked out that Moog's father had sent these codes to the Romulans, and then afterwards, just as you were saying, basically, what was it you said before? Let's track.
I don't even remember. I will say though, just thinking about this is the first time that we've been on Kronos. Just the set design, the matte paintings of the city and everything, it is just absolutely gorgeous. Like, they really, really sell this culture with that design, and just props.
The
to
costumes too. These were the best Klingon costumes and the best like headpieces. The main guy, the Duras, he has a really cool headpiece.
Yeah. The House of Duras is a recurring villain, not just with Duras, but his sisters and his son, some other people show up, and they all have that very distinctive forehead shape. It's a familial thing, but it's basically just a nice way. It's like, okay, when they've got those strong side lines and just that three crossed ridge thing, that's the Duras crest.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I think it's probably my favorite Klingon makeup of the whole series so far. But they actually put a lot of time and effort into it. It felt like they were really trying to create the lore of this episode so that we had the lore to build off of going forward.
There's a reason that Ronald D. Moore is called the Klingon guy. And basically all of the best Klingon episodes of TNG he wrote. When he joined the writer's room for Voyager for like half a season, he wrote like, he's like, look, you might be in the Delta Quadrant, I'm still writing a Klingon episode. He's so good at developing them as a culture, because really before he came around, there was just kind of like vague understandings of what Klingons were, but he was just like, no, we're gonna let's actually go into it and explore how they're kind of a feudalistic society with codes of honor and all that stuff, and how that works, and the inner politicking, and how the politicking, as we see in this episode, stands in direct contrast to the conception of Klingons as this honor-bound race, because everything that they do on the High Council is just underhanded,
dirty,
dirty, cowardly, and because the Enterprise crew, they're like, well, we got to earn our paycheck this week too, so let's investigate the evidence for Moog doing it and compare that with our own logs, because they find out that, looks like the Klingons actually altered the records to frame Moog, and I think we might know who actually did it. And it turns out it was Duras's father instead.
Right.
But the House of Duras is a powerful house in Klingon culture, and if dishonor were brought upon that, it could break the Empire apart and lead to civil war. But the House of Moog is gone. Worf is off in Starfleet. Nobody knew about Kern. And Moog's been dead.
Right. So it was easy to pin it on him. Yeah.
It was easy to pin it on him. And when Worf shows up, K'mpec is just like, dude, just go away. We'll leave you alone. Just don't challenge this. Just let it be.
Right.
But of course, Worf can't do that because Worf
is a Klingon.
He is not just a Klingon, he is an outsider Klingon. He's one of those people who...
More to prove, yeah.
He has more to prove. He has an idealized conception of what Klingons should be because he had to learn it from the outside. I often call Worf a Klingon weeaboo, jokingly. But his idea of what it means to be a Klingon is not accurate, but it is romanticized and it is like idealistic.
Well, it's the image that Klingons want to portray to the rest of the world.
Yes,
and it's like a pure Klingonness that is untainted by having to actually live in Klingon society, because like I feel like a lot of the concessions people make to this code of honor, and I think this is one of the reasons I really love Klingons in Star Trek, is because I love old samurai movies and like the Twilight Samurai series in general, right? And the Twilight Samurai series is all about how the Bushido code, or like the idea of what a samurai should be, conflicts constantly with doing the right thing morally rather than being obedient to your lord, or means that you can't do the right thing for the people you love, right? Because duty is more important. And I feel like Worf just has this kind of easy time where he can be the perfect Klingon because he doesn't have to live in Klingon society.
Yeah,
and everybody else has to live in Klingon society and is so strictly bound by all of these rules and stuff, and yet still has to deal with the complexities of daily life, with people constantly trying to backstab them, with the violence of the Klingon society, and also balance like love and family life against this duty and honor that they're supposed to value above all else. Can I just say, one of the worst lines that Michael Dorn, that is his name, isn't it? Worf's actor. Has ever delivered is when he turns up to the Klingon High Council in this episode and says, I am Worf, son of Moog. I've come to challenge the lies that have been spoken of my father. The camera angle is terrible. The lighting is awful. And his delivery is so bad. And it's just like... Michael Dorn's an amazing actor, and like Worf is a great character, but it just, for that moment, it just looked like I don't know, some sort of fan edit or something. It was so terrible.
I had the same thought. I wondered why it seemed so cheesy.
It was like he was posturing specifically to play up his Klingonness, but it just came across as like kind of farcical as a result.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. How about that one moment when Geordi kind of throws him under the bus? When they were eating dinner, though, because before they know that he's his brother, he's like, oh, this food's all so bland. And I had meant to bring this up, and then Geordi's like, Worf seems to eat it just fine. And I was like, Geordi, what the hell, buddy? You know that's going to be offensive. What are you doing? Like, I thought it was such a weird thing for Geordi to say. Because it's like, obviously Klingons want to be known as the badasses, not the guys who can eat the bland people food,
Well, and there's also kind of a running joke in Star Trek that Worf just likes to eat disgusting things.
Yeah, they've established that even in the episodes I've seen.
When Riker made the scrambled eggs that everyone else thought was disgusting, Worf was just like grabbing other people's plates to eat it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So we get to this point, and then they find out that Kern, I think, is the brother. I'm trying to remember how it happened.
Duras reveals to Kern that he knows that Kern is also a son of Moog and 6'2" assassins on him. And Kern gets stabbed, but he's a Klingon, and it takes more than getting stabbed in the liver to kill you. But
he's going to take some time to recover.
So Worf needs a new Chadich.
And of course, we get the best one.
We get Captain Picard as the Chadich, which also I love. Just like we had that interplay with Worf and Kern, where he's like, on this ship, you are my commanding officer, but on Kronos, you are my Chadich, and you will listen to me. We get that same interplay with Worf and Picard, because in Klingon Matters, Picard has to answer to Worf for this. He's like, no, you will follow my lead here. And it was nice to see that role reversal.
The Chadich will be silent.
Yes. I don't think anyone else has been able to get Picard to shut up like that other than like Loxana Troy.
Yeah, I was just thinking Loxana. Yeah. But I think that Picard is very he's respectful of other traditions, so he wants to he's like, okay, this is my role, I have to be respectful, that kind of stuff.
He obviously did his reading, because when Worf asks him to be his Chadich, Picard says the exact same thing that Kern said in Klingon, which I don't have the translation for, but it's like, oh yeah, he just said the same lines. He's done his reading. He knows a little bit about Klingon culture.
I don't know why I was so surprised that Picard spoke Klingon, but I was like, oh,
he probably is not fluent, but he knows a few words. He looked that up before Worf came to him.
The translation is, I accept with honor, may your enemies tremble before you.
Oh,
that sounds like a Klingon thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we get to my favorite part, where suddenly they realize there was a lady who was alive, and she's a badass Klingon lady. I loved her.
And her name is Kaelist.
That's what it was. I couldn't remember what it was.
Close to Kaelist. But
yeah, it's like the feminine version of Kaelis. Yeah. And it turns out she was Worf's nurse, but they were the only two survivors of Khitomer, and she was separated from him when they were rescued, so Worf just assumed she died.
Everybody assumed she died, because she's like, I can't go testify in front of the council because I'm dead.
Which is weird, because, if she's dead, then how come the Enterprise is like, oh no, we found records of her, she's here living in the
quarters. Yeah, I know. I don't know. It was weird.
The Enterprise just has it has the computers, it does the things, they find them. It's all bounce the graviton particle beam off the main deflector dish, all that.
So Picard goes to her, but she's just like, no, I will not testify. I am dead. I cannot go. And then Picard's about to leave and give up on her when he gets attacked by assassins. And they're giving Picard more action this season, because a couple episodes ago when he leapt across the bridge to deck the terrorist, he shanks a bitch.
Yeah. He did. But he also, he's attacked from two sides, and he gets attacked from the one side, and then he turns his back to his attacker. And I was like, that's good combat, Picard. But don't worry, he gets saved by the old lady Klingon.
That's right.
And obviously impressed by his prowess in battle, she agrees to actually go and help him.
Right.
And there's also just a cute moment too, because back in the day, Kempek, who is the Klingon Chancellor, he used to have eyes for her, but she thought he was too fat. And so they bring her to the council chambers, and she even Kempek says, oh, it's good to see you again, Kaelis, and she goes, you're still fat.
Still fat, Kempek.
But once they bring Kaelist in, everyone starts panicking, and they're like, no, sidebar right now. Let's go private chambers. We can't let her testify. And then they lay out the whole truth, where Duras his family is the one that betrayed everyone. And they explain, we can't let this stand. She will not be permitted to testify. We will not sacrifice the Klingon Empire for the honor of one house. Just for the honor of a different house.
yeah, right. He says, well, they wouldn't be sacrificing the future of the Klingon Imperial Empire, would they? Yeah. But so he says they're going to go ahead and Worf and Kern will both be condemned. And Worf says, condemn me, don't condemn my brother. I'm happy to die for the Klingon Empire. After Picard, that's when you get the should each will be silent moment, right?
Right.
Because Picard's like, whoa, I'm not letting you execute my officer for a crime he did not commit. And Worf's like, bitch, shut up. I'm talking right now.
And he volunteers to die for the future of the Klingon Empire. But only if Kern's life can be spared. And Duras is like, well, no, because that will Kern's honor will require him to take vengeance for that. And so Worf offers to accept discommendation, I think they call it.
Yeah.
Right? If Kern's allowed to live. And they all agree. And discommendation basically just seems to mean that he's considered a kind of an outcast in Klingon societies, like strict.
Yeah, they did Wakanda Forever and turned their backs on him, and yeah, that was it. I was like, okay, cool.
Worf gets his moment where he gets to go to Duras and say, "You are the son of a traitor," and backhands him. Proper pimp slaps him across the face.
And Kim Peck is sitting there just like, yeah, he deserves that. You should do that.
Seems reasonable to me. Yeah. And then he goes out to the Klingon main hall, and they all do the thing, don't they?
They do the thing.
They do the thing. Yeah. And everybody they all call him cowards, and they all call him a coward and turn their backs to him, and he walks out.
With Picard, his chosen family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of course, he's like the bravest one of all of them for doing that, because they're all cowards who can't accept the truth because it'll tear them apart. So,
yep.
Worf is the truest Klingon in the room.
So I've got two problems with this episode now that we've discussed the whole thing. My first is the House of Moog is not done with those two because there's the adopted kid that was like initiated into the House of Moog or whatever.
Jeremy Astor, he never comes up again. Don't worry about him. That episode, whatever.
Alexander.
Well, Alexander hasn't shown up yet, so we don't know.
No, I'm talking about the white kid.
Yeah.
So that Worf adopted 8 episodes ago, and then we've never talked about him since. And I will continue to bring him up.
Does he exist? I've forgotten that he existed. The only son of Worf I know is Alexander. I don't know who this kid is you're talking about.
It's Jeremy Astor. He was in just one episode early in the season. He was the son of an officer who died under Worf's command, and so Worf
because he was a foundling just like Worf, and so he adopts him, and then I'm like, oh cool, so is he a part of the crew now? And then he tells me no, we're never going to see him again, and I'm like, what?
God, it'd be so much better if we had that kid instead of Wesley Crusher. Holy Wesley Crusher annoys the hell out of me.
Oh, I love Wesley. I'm a big Wesley fan.
There's definitely two camps among Star Trek Next Generation fans. There's those who love Wesley and those who hate him, and I just find him incredibly irritating.
My other complaint about this episode is where the hell was Data?
He was the one doing the research. He was the one who found out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They stuck him in the library with Giles. That's right. I forgot. I couldn't remember where he was. Yeah, okay, that's where he is. Okay, so because usually I would have liked to have seen his take on the Klingon culture and stuff. He would have been so annoying if he had gone down to Kronos with them. And it would have been talking about Klingon stuff, doing things wrong, getting the Klingons mad at him. It would have been comedy gold.
He'd have been like, I will die for the Empire. But that does not seem logical to me. That would have been Data's response. This seems very silly.
I have this scene playing out in my head of Data beaming down to the High Council chambers and just, commenting matter-of-factly on everything, and he annoys one of the Klingons so much that they just, stab him, and then he just looks down at the stab wound and just goes, fascinating, or something like that.
Right, that would be exactly what he would do, too. Yeah, he'd be like, I seem to have been stabbed. But I really liked this episode. I thought it was for me, someone who doesn't know a lot about the Klingons, since this is my first run through of The Next Generation, I really liked it. It set up a lot of stuff that I didn't know. I liked getting Worf backstory,
It's such a great way of introducing the Klingons in a real sense into The Next Generation. Because, obviously back in the original series, they're completely different, and you might as well forget that they existed at all. But in The Next Generation, they're only kind of talked about, and you only get to see Klingon culture through Worf's eyes, right? As we talked about, that's a very idealized version of Klingon culture. Right. And then going to Kronos, seeing all the sort of the scheming, the backhandedness, seeing the streets of the first city, and you really get a feel for the environment that Klingons exist in. And it just sets everything up so brilliantly. And I think it's such a great introduction to what Klingons are from that point forward in Star Trek, because it just, it changes so much from the first series, and then it just completely solidifies and cements it. And they don't really deviate from it either. They just expand on that for up until Discovery. Basically, Klingons remain as they were in Sins of the Father. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I really liked about going to Kronos and seeing the city was, at first I was like, it's like a more primitive Coruscant from Star Wars. And then I realized that that's what I think the show has been missing, is on location, quote unquote, shoots. But we get those occasionally, but they usually look like original series sets. There was a lot more care and effort put into the set for the Klingon city. Mm. And it seemed more expansive than any of the original series type sets we've seen.
I think also the fact that you've got low light and just the constant smoke of the Klingon culture, that can also hide some of the lower detail of the TV sets.
But the sets are beautiful, though.
The sets are beautiful.
They put so much work into this episode.
But even so, having the low light and the smoke, that adds texture and detail to it and hides some of the stuff there. It's okay, well, that wasn't as detailed as I thought because it's hidden by smoke. It's a lot like how everyone thinks of, how come the CGI in Jurassic Park was so much better than everything? It's well, they were playing to their strengths. The T-Rex scene is at night, in the rain.
In the wet, yes, because they could make the skin look so much better if it was raining.
And because it's dark and there's mist in front, it can hide, any kind of a low resolution texture or anything like that. It was just, and also it was before they did digital color grading. I've heard that has affected a lot of the realism appearances of CGI. But yeah, no, it's just, they play to their strengths. And so, while I did complain about a lot of the lighting in this episode, because there's times where Kern's face is just completely in shadow, and I'm just dude, where is the light on this guy?
You can have mood lighting and have light and light up someone's face. Yeah.
But I think, it works well for the Klingon. And, the Klingon aesthetic has always been that grungy, low red lighting and smoke. And so that just gives them that good kind of a feel, just like a grimy industrial aesthetic.
Oh, when they first beamed down to the Klingon tribunal area, there's an X behind Picard, and I was like, oh, I found the X, because I play that game with Picard or with when he's Xavier, and so I had the moment of, oh, he has the X behind him, and I was like, no, wrong series. But yeah, I loved this one. This was good. This is a good episode.
This is probably one of the best episodes we've had so far.
Yeah.
And season 3 is when we get Ronald D. Moore on the writing staff, and he's definitely shown his chops so far.
Things take off. Yeah, for sure.
It's amazing to think that this was his first writing job.
It is. Yeah.
This is how he got his start, and now he's created so many amazing shows. He did Battlestar Galactica and For All Mankind and Outlander, and
did he do Outlander?
Yeah, that was Ronald D. Moore, and he was like one of the big driving forces in Deep Space Nine.
He supposedly fixed Roswell. Like,
I never watched Roswell.
Have you guys already seen the Ferengi episode where they're on the planet and the Ferengi are all feral and hissing and weird?
Yeah, that was the Last Outpost. That was
one of the first episodes. I feel like
5, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this guy that you're talking about, the writer, I don't know enough about the writers. Like, it seems like he helped solidify the Klingons and helped solidify the Ferengi in Deep Space Nine, right? Because the Ferengi in Next Generation
are a joke.
Mostly they're a joke, right? Whereas, like, in Deep Space Nine, they're like a more fully fleshed out culture, even if they are still a little bit worryingly anti-Semitic and, still slightly comedic. They're much more fleshed out. They feel much more like a real culture rather than just these weird little golem creatures.
With dryer tubes for weapons, yeah. I was not impressed. I have not been impressed with the Ferengi yet. And every time they've had Armin Shimmerman on like 3 times that he hasn't been Quark, and I will continually complain about this. Like, I don't even I haven't seen Deep Space Nine, but I know Armin Shimmerman is Quark because everybody, my entire life, every time I'm watching Buffy, has to point out that he's Quark. and so I've been waiting for Quark, and he's been on the show like 2 or 3 times now, and he's still not Quark. It's weird. Yeah.
Not Quark. Yeah, no, just random Ferengi.
I think Quark does show up in an episode of TNG, like, as Quark. So you're going to see Quark on TNG before we even get to Deep Space Nine.
Well, finally, right? Yeah.
Well, they started airing, Deep Space Nine started airing like halfway through TNG, didn't it?
Season 6.
Season 6, right?
Oh, so close to the end. Okay. Is it like Angel and Buffy where they interact with each other, or are they completely separate?
It's pretty separate. There's like 1 or 2 crossover episodes, but for the most part, they do their own thing.
Okay. Well, I think that's everything I have to say about this episode. But before we say goodbye, guess what shipped yesterday? My 3D chess shipped yesterday.
Nice.
I'm very excited to play it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to come over. We'll get some cameras set up. We'll figure out how to do it, and we'll put that one up as a bonus video.
All right. So I think that's everything for today. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for joining us, Vivian.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I like talking Trek with people.
We love having people on, too. So I'm Ari.
And I'm GayFesh.
And I'm Vivian.
And until next time,
live long and prosper.
Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe and consider writing a review in your podcast service.
We're on Twitter at RestBothWorlds.
Join our Patreon at patreon.com/restofbothworlds for bonus content and hear your name at the end of each episode.